It is time for Monday Mindset Mojo. I hope you guys have something really yummy to drink. I'm drinking some apple spice tea this morning, and I'll be drinking some other things along the way. Maybe just some water. You know, how do you start out your day? How do you stay hydrated? Well, this is how I stay hydrated, and today we're here to hydrate your mind. We're going to dive into the realm of high performance mindset. I've got 5 extraordinary guests here. Sheila Slick, the Brian Orr from X, Amy at Acorn Long, Chaz Green, the beloved Dr. Chuck, a Navy veteran, and KREØN, a self-hacking life coach. And welcome, guys. I appreciate you being here this early in the morning, and I look forward to some top-level tips from you guys. But I want to go to Sheila and let her introduce herself, and then we'll go round robin, gents last. And so, Sheila, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sheila Slick. I am a business and leadership development consultant and owner of 5 Milestones LLC. And I help people, individuals, businesses use self-leadership to transform their lives.
Wow, I love that. That is, short and sweet and to the point. I need to make Sheila a co-host. Sheila's is going to be on the show a lot, and so I know you guys are excited to hear from her that know her from some previous broadcasts. But Amy at Acorn Long on X, tell us about yourself and what you do out there in the real world.
Good morning, and it's good to be here. Glad to see everyone, and thanks for this opportunity. I'm a leadership coach, and I'm here on X sharing my lessons that I've learned over 2 decades of having leadership roles, and mostly in corporate America, and just helping people understand leadership things that I learned along the way that I wish I knew going back to my first role at 19.
Wow, your first role at 19 years old, man, you got started at a young age, huh? That's fantastic. And another person that got started at a young age and is still at a young age here, I remember those lovely days with my dear friend KREØN. KREØN, tell us about yourself and your background.
All right, so I hope you guys can hear me. So yeah,
You sound great.
my name is KREØN. I'm a host space. Oh, awesome! I host spaces on my account, also on my little community, and on some Web3 projects. Sometimes, I handle events for projects and startups. Um, for their some AMAs and events. That's what I do mostly in the Web3 space, and I also host some non-web which focuses on self-hacking. It's just like a journey because I'm trying to like coach myself and doing all this self-hacking, but I'm also like sharing it to my community. So that's what I basically do in this space. And I'm also I'm proud to say that I'm actually a product of Dr. Heath's dedication to sharing his knowledge and his wisdom in this space. And I see him as my mentor. So I'm really happy to be here. It's my first time to be on his stream, but I've done some ghosting with him, and I'm proud of that. So thank you for having me here, Dr. Heath.
KREØN, thank you for being here. You know, KREØN, one of my favorite people on X. He's a wonderful speaker. We have a daily space called Mindset, Midday Mindset, and KREØN comes on there a lot, as well as on my weekend space for speakers called SOS, Space on Spaces. And so very proud of this young man. I've seen him progress so much, and I was so excited to have him on the show today. Let's go to Dr. Chuck, and I'm going to go the full panel so you can see everybody react, because Dr. Chuck's face doesn't change. He's fixed in motion there with his fab. I love that. I love that photo there. And Dr. Chuck, tell us about your background and help us get to know you. Oh, did we lose Dr. Chuck? Paging Dr. Chuck. Paging Dr. Chuck to the ER. Nope. We might have lost him in the feed, but we're going to go on to Brian, my wonderful friend Brian. Hey, give us your background. Tell us about yourself. What do you do out there in the real world?
Yeah, I'm always kind of like the next best option, right? I'll take it. I'm just teasing. Yeah, good morning. So I am drinking Hawaiian volcanic water. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, in the real world. So for 25 some odd years, I was a touring DJ. I worked with major brands in a bunch of different countries, and yeah, built that brand as an individual, as an entertainer. So now I teach people how to build that kind of brand, a trust-based brand with magnetic personalities, and not, tactics and social strategies and that type of thing. So that's what I help people do.
Well, that's amazing. And I hope you guys can see already what a power packed, oh, what do we got left here? About an hour and 15 minutes of great world class expertise right here on Monday Mindset Mojo. So if you have thoughts and questions, what I want you to do is go into the chat and drop them, because you see the space right in the middle. We're going to pull your quote, your comment, your question up on the screen, and we want a lot of really great questions. And so don't hesitate to do that. We are now live streaming on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and into my Mindset Masterclass. And so if you'd like to join a great group of people that really focus on leveling up how you think about life, just go over to school.com/mindset. School is spelled SKOOL. School.com/mindset. Grab a free membership. It won't always be free, but if you join up now, it's free for a lifetime. And so go ahead and join me over there. It's great to see you guys here today. But I wanted to get started with, well, our show notes, as I call them, because I always get this ready before a show. I've got lots and lots of questions to ask you guys in the time that we're here. But let's talk a little bit about trusting yourself. So, Sheila to start a business, Amy to get out there on social media into live coaching, KREØN to be willing to take a mic, put yourself out there like this right here. And Brian, my goodness, a DJ. DJs to me seem a bit like astronauts. They got all the equipment and the headphones and everything, and they kind of blast us off and take us mentally to another planet. And Dr. Chuck, if you're back with us in the ER, in the hallways of medicine, how do you develop trust in yourself? How do you develop trust in yourself? And I'll go to Brian first here, and then kind of in reverse order go around the room with Dr. Chuck and KREØN and Amy and Sheila. How do you develop trust in yourself to get out there in front of all those people and use that technology? And here's why this question comes to mind. I was looking at someone's post on some social media, I don't even recall which social media platform, and they truly had more bells, knobs, and whistles than I've seen in a 747 in the cockpit. And I'm thinking, man, how do you learn how to use all this stuff, all this tech? And so you got to do that. So you got to develop some kind of trust in yourself. I guess maybe being willing to mess up or whatever. But Brian, take it away. How did you get there from where you started?
Yeah, so when I started, there wasn't a whole lot of bells and whistles. It was 2 turntables and a microphone, and that was about it. But developing trust in myself, I have a talk that I do. It's called From Stage Fright to Spotlight, and the trust in myself was very difficult. At a very young age, what I learned through self-awareness, which I didn't know. I know these words now. I didn't know what I was doing when I was a teenager. I didn't know that I was actually doing this type of reflection. But what I learned, at a very young age, were the things that I was capable of doing and the things that I was not capable of doing. And, people will encourage, oh, you can do anything. Well, I can't dunk a basketball, and I probably could never dunk a basketball. That's just life. So, I accept the things that I cannot change, right? And I developed, kind of this mindset around, well, how can I achieve the things that I want to achieve with the things that I'm capable of doing? And somehow or another, we don't have time here, but it got me onto performing music as a DJ. And it was kind of cool in the 90s. I was in the crow's nest. I wasn't on stage like they are now. I mean, I am, or I was recently. Anyway, rambling, sorry. The trust factor. I made it about the audience and not about myself. And that's pretty much the punchline. It's when the spotlight was on me, I was terrified in every way, shape, and form. Still to this day, as a speaker, I'm terrified speaking on stage. But when I can, kind of shine the mirror off my head and reflect it on the audience, when the spotlight's on the audience and I realize that I'm there to serve a purpose and I'm there to fulfill an objective, that is the thing that allows me to trust myself, with the preparation that I'd done beforehand. And then I can go out and deliver and just go out and execute for the purpose of the audience.
Man, Brian, I think that's so important. What comes to mind is just because you don't see Superman sweat or Superwoman sweat doesn't mean they're not sweating. And here's a quick, it's a bit of a self-hypnosis trick, is that when you're on stage or you're making a presentation, I was kind of running late this morning because I was pumping out half a dozen new proposals for different clientele, different companies, things like that, just trying to get them done. And so imagine I'm sitting in front of one of those CEOs, one of those executives. There's a difference mentally where I think the spotlight is directed. If I think the spotlight's on me, then I'm going to activate some fight or flight mechanisms in my own brain. If, like Brian said, I put that spotlight, if you're speaking in front of a crowd, put the spotlight on the crowd. If you're talking to an executive, if you're talking to a CEO, CTO, whatever, put the spotlight on them. Put the spotlight on their needs, not whatever need you think you have, to get rid of your panic, your terror, your anxiety. Brian, what was the word you used? You said I'm always
I said terrified. I don't know.
Terrified, yeah. You can put the spotlight on your
fear.
own, presence of being terrified. Well, that's going to sabotage you. If your spotlight of attention is on thinking that being terrified means you're going to melt, and if you do, you should catch that on camera. You'll get like a billion YouTube hits or whatever, catch it on camera. But I've never seen anybody do that. So put the spotlight on the reason you're there, which is not you, and not to avoid a difficult emotion, but on your audience, Brian, I just love that. Thanks so much. Let's go to KREØN. Now, KREØN, let me just tell you, when I first heard you in my spaces, which for those not familiar with X, it's like Clubhouse. It's a audio discussion. It's really kind of like old time radio talk show. Okay, except for you have a whole bunch of speakers. You can have 10 and 2 co-hosts, and then you can have thousands in your audience. But KREØN started coming on my spaces, and I thought, you know what, man, I really wish I had it all together like this young man when I was his age. And so how have you developed your mindset over time for that trust factor, to really trust yourself to do well when you're speaking and presenting and things like that?
Well, yeah, doctor, I'm going to be really honest about this. So, when you met me, I probably have I have a less trust of myself because I went through something that actually like collapsed or what I built in the past. So during those first sessions that we have on X Spaces, I think I can't even like talk like this, like straight. Not only because English is not my first language, but also I didn't have like confidence, in myself. So over time, I think it's the biggest factor is finding mentors like yourself that I found in space. So that way I kind of it's not to validate what I can or what I have in mind or what I want to do, but it's just like really me learning, trying to build my self trust, because I realized that if I cannot trust myself, nobody will ever trust me as well. I will never be back on my feet again. So it was a game changer to actually believe in yourself and have some people um, guiding you through your journey. So I'd say, yeah, that was like the biggest thing, the biggest factor that impacted me.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So it's important to have some people around you as your backup. For me, that's my wife. Sometimes my son, who's a soon doctor to be, he's about to enter his residency. I ask his thoughts and opinions on things because I've helped him over decades build his mindset. And so now I'm getting the return on investment from that by being able to field things in front of him, and he can say, hey, Dad, I don't know, I wouldn't do that. And so I give him permission to be direct. I give him permission to be honest, to be genuine, and then I don't punish him for doing that. And sometimes, yeah, those things sting, but you're never gonna finely chisel and sculpt the marble of your life without discomfort. I mean, imagine that you're a hunk of marble. Do you really think, even if it was Michelangelo chipping away at you, that that would be without discomfort? And so be willing to embrace some of that discomfort. And Ryan, thank you so much for your question. I'm going to put it up here where our panel can reach. So as you're talking, guys, Ryan has a question. What's an example of a leadership gap in helping others that you personally experienced, a leadership gap? So what have you seen people out there struggle with? It could be you with self-leadership. It could be you, any of you with self-leadership. I certainly have stories for myself, and then I'll put up there again because it disappears after a while. But Ryan also asked, why does it stand out to you, and what did you do to overcome that leadership gap? And I'm going to kind of say that self-leadership gap, and then I'll share mine. But let's go to Amy, and then we'll go to Sheila. What do you think, Amy?
Sure. So I had seen his question, and it reminds me of a story I have, but then it goes along with what Brian and KREØN have also said, just about being able to trust yourself. So what I remember is I had this girl that worked for me when I was in corporate America, and she really didn't trust herself as far as learning what she needed to learn to go to the next level, and really was constantly discouraged and just couldn't believe in herself. And what I asked her to start doing every day was, I said, I want you to write a list all day long of everything you learned that's new. And then I want you to come and talk to me about it as often as you need to. And what I reinforced with her was, maybe, if you're trying to get a promotion, then you're going to have to learn new definitions and a dialogue. So write down even the smallest, the simplest things. And she got to, and I had told her, you need to get to at least 100. And the whole point was to emphasize and encourage herself and see that she actually was learning. She was accomplishing something. She had just been looking at wanting to make really these large progressional steps when you can't make those without making the small steps. And so what it helped her see was that everything is just a stepping stone, and close that gap, that she was learning something, maybe hour by hour every day if you really break things down. And she was just so excited. She turned around after, maybe a few weeks to a month, and it gave her this whole new sense of momentum.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love the micro step thing. I do the same thing in so many different areas. One of them is just trying to be more efficient at whatever my hand finds to do. The good book says, I'm a believer, guys. Good book says, whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. And you really can't do anything with all your might if you're allowing yourself to be distracted by why you can't, and why you shouldn't, and why you don't deserve, and why someone else can do it better, and why should you do something that someone's already done. Imagine people stopping when they developed modes of getting around the planet. You know, we would still be walking or riding donkeys or horses or or mules or whatever. No, you have to iterate, and iteration, trying something new. You know, the next plan B, plan C, plan Z comes with being willing to question what you've already produced. And maybe the thing that someone else has already produced is not the best that it could get. And let's say, yeah, we got Dr. Chuck back, Dr. Chuck. And so I'd like to go to Dr. Chuck here in a moment, because what we're talking about, Doc, is how do we trust ourselves to do something? And I'm sure with your years in the medical field, that's been a really big deal that you've seen, is especially young doctors who, it doesn't matter how much they've been taught, how many years they've been in med school, there still has to be a point where they can trust that what they're about to do is a good thing to do, a protocol-based thing to do, that they can do it. And so what advice would you have to a new doctor to, man, you've got the knowledge, you've got to trust what you know? I mean, what would you say? And if you can hear me, you can take that mic and take it away. Let me see if I've got him on the panel. Dr. Chuck, can you hear me? Let me see. He is muted, so let's see if we can unmute him. Dr. Chuck, paging Dr. Chuck. Let me try this. Dr. Chuck, can you hear us? Are you with us?
Testing.
Hey. I love it when a plan comes together after the third or fourth try.
Awesome.
Did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard all of that. I've been listening to you guys in the background. It's refreshing to hear your stories. KREØN, good to meet you. Brian, good to meet you, man. Miss Acorn Long and Sheila Slick. Yeah, so it's awesome. I mean, look, this is a game. I mean, what the game I'm playing is just diagnosing diseases, but there's a big difference between having textbook knowledge and then actually being out in the field and making quick decisions. So I think the most important thing is humility and graduated responsibility. So when you're under pressure, like for example, in a rural environment, I was out in western Nebraska for like about almost a year of my early training. And because of the fact there weren't a lot of people around, period, it was just inevitable that you get graduated responsibility. Like the family medicine doc will just tell you, like, hey, it's on you. Next 6 hours, you're covering the ER. And of course, this is terrifying, right? You've memorized a bunch of facts, but you've never held another person's life in your hands. I remember there was this one time a 19-year-old kid was caught in a drunk driving accident. It was the first time I'd seen a dead body face to face, and the trauma surgeon was down there helping me code this patient, or scratch that, reverse it. I was helping him code the patient, and at the end of it, he basically told me, look, this person was already deceased on arrival, but this was as morbid as it sounds, this is the best opportunity for you to go through all the checklists of a trauma resuscitation protocol, where the stakes, unfortunately, don't matter in this case. He was dead on arrival. And so that was kind of an extreme case. But then fast forward like 4 years later, I'm covering a clinic in Camp Pendleton, California, and a young Marine walks in and he got stung by a bee. And, you know, it's red on his neck where he got stung. And we're just kind of watching him. You know, the corpsman brought him in, and he's got a normal oxygen saturation. He's conversating and everything. But literally 10 minutes later, under observation, his airway starts to, close off. And this redness and swelling expands to the rest of his face. His lips become swollen and red. Even his arms start puffing up. And so these are clinical signs of anaphylactic shock. And so I gathered every epinephrine pen that we had in that clinic and, one by one, put him in there. And that was only going to last another half an hour. This patient needed IV epinephrine, and so in a matter of minutes, we got the proper vehicle to transport him to Mainside, the hospital, and he was admitted as an inpatient. But I think a lot of those things where you feel uncertain, it's good to iron that out early in life with graduated responsibility, so that when it's actually time to make a decision under pressure, you're not thinking. Thinking is the enemy. You want instinctual, you want reflex. It's like, like that Dan Inosanto, the kung fu guy that trained with Bruce Lee. He was like, train the reflex and the move is already there. So I think that's what, like, at least in my world, and I'm sure it's in your world and in corporate America, when you're training young employees for critical, time-sensitive decisions, you're trying to train your younger people to have an instinct to act when it's important, and then also have the humility to, number one, deal with the consequences of making a bad decision and owning that, and number two, knowing who your lifelines are. So in your phone, at a moment's notice, you can call someone with a specific targeted question, and I think the only way to prepare for that is just getting the reps in.
Get the reps in, absolutely. Get the reps in. And to go back and add on to what Dr. Chuck said, at some point in your life, guys, there was this really, really complicated procedure that probably 98.6% of you guys had to learn. One of the most complex procedures that humans have to learn. But you learned it, you got good at it, probably, and now you don't even think about it. So this is the instinct that we're talking about. Not that it's a emotion. Emotions aren't needles on a compass. You can't balance your checkbook with an emotion. Emotions don't tell you which way is north or south. And the procedure I'm talking about is ambulation. That is walking. Ambulation, the skill of walking, is a really complex thing that takes you a while to get. You fall over, you learn, you get back up, you fall over, you see how that works, So whether you're going to do what Brian Orr does, the DJ thing, whether you're going to do coaching the way Amy and Sheila does and I myself do, you've got to be willing to fall over and then repeat getting back up, and then fall over and repeat getting back up until you're really good at getting back up, and then eventually you stop falling over as much. And so I love what Dr. Chuck said. Thank you so very much. Words of wisdom indeed. The way the brain works is you're really, really aware of procedural steps, and then your brain subliminates them. It kind of recesses it outside of conscious awareness, so you don't have to think about it as much. And so when you don't know what to do, Amy pointed this out. Go back to step one of your process. I remember the story I shared in a space not too long ago about Maya Angelou had written what she called one of her best books of all time. And then she gets in a New York City taxi cab and leaves the draft in the taxi cab. The whole book, the whole draft. She never finds it again. But she reasons, I've already written books, so I know the process. I'm going to start at step number one and write a better book. And that's exactly what she did. And so go back to what you know. And here are 3 tips, or really 1 tip, 3 steps. And the 3 steps, I call it SBT, SBT, SBT. Stop. Take a moment. Give yourself the space and grace of a moment. Breathe. Yeah, just like that. And then give yourself a moment to think. Stop, breathe, think. You'll be amazed what your mind is capable of coming up with. Even when the world around you seems to be chaos, the world inside of you doesn't have to be chaos. This can be the center of the storm, which is calm, sure, and directed. And let me emphasize, that doesn't mean, like a lot of people think, that doesn't mean the absence of anxiety, the absence of terror, the absence of panic. Oh, no. If you wait for those to go away, you're never going to master anything. Mastery is progressing through those with those walking beside you, because there's a reason our brains are capable of doing that. Brian said that he is in terror every time he goes on stage. Or, I am too. You may think, but I can't see it. Well, of course you can't see it. I don't intend for you to see it, because that doesn't serve you, unless I think it does. So if it serves you, my audience, for you to see me sweat, I don't mind you seeing me sweat. I'm sweating right now. I've got this hoodie on. It's kind of warm in here in my little coffee shop kitchen. But sweating is not the problem. Sweating doesn't have to interfere, terror, panic, anxiety. None of that has to interfere with performance. It's all about the spotlight of your attention. Are you going to focus it on yourself and your anxiety, your stress, your terror, whatever? Or are you going to focus it on the needs, when it comes to Dr. Chuck, the needs of that patient? And that patient, if you're a DJ, may be a whole room full of people. That patient, if you're a coach, may be the person sitting in front of you. If you're a teacher, it's your classroom of students. I've had teachers that come to me for coaching, and the first thing they say is, I ran from the room in terror. I thought, wow, man, I mean, I don't know. It's been a while since second grade, but I mean, I've not heard of second grade cannibals in a long time. I mean, my dad would say, what are they going to do? They're not going to eat you. And so put the spotlight of your attention where it belongs, and only you are in charge of your spotlight. I want to remind our panel of this question, a great question. If you guys have questions, put that in the chat. Ryan, it's so great to see you here, Ryan. And once again, guys, what's an example of a leadership gap you've noticed in others? I think that begins with self-leadership. What's an example? And why does it stand out to you? And what did you do to help people overcome it? And let's see. I think we went to Amy. And so now we went to Chuck. And so let's go to Sheila. What do you think, Sheila?
I'm unmuted. So I'd like to address, how do you trust yourself first? And I have 3 different ways with examples. So hopefully I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Growing up, my mother always said, yes, you can. And then my mantra as a mother was, well, you can't fail if you don't try. And so I've learned that having just one person that believes in you can be all of the fuel in the world. So surround yourself with at least one person that will provide that external confidence to remind you of some of the strengths that perhaps you're overlooking. Right now, Dr. Heath, you're doing that for me. Being live on your show and being streamed to all of your social media, I'm out of my comfort zone, which is number 2. That's where growth happens. So I appreciate you, because thanks to you, I'm here doing what I need to do in order to grow. And when we doubt ourselves, just remember, you can't fail if you don't try. How have I put that into, walk the talk? Well, I'll give you 2 examples. When I was 36, a mother of 3, I learned how to code. This is right when the iPod Touch came out. But I was a retail jewelry store owner. I was learning how to code to teach my kids, we were living in a third world country, that this is the future. And whether or not they teach it at school, you need to be exposed to code. Well, about 3 years later, after 10 mobile apps, all educational, I got invited to a NASA hackathon, and I stepped out of that meeting like, you think I'm a genius? I can't do an app for NASA and compete in a competition. My children, good return on investment like yourself, came back that night and said, Mother, you can't fail if you don't try. So I reframed it. And yes, we participated, and we ended up with a global honorable mention for most inspiring, because we used it as an educational platform. And so now I believed I could, because even up through the hackathon, I still didn't think I can code an app that's even worthy for NASA, yet alone be recognized for it. So don't be afraid to step out of that comfort zone. A few years ago, I joined SCORE, which is a national nonprofit, a partner of the SBA, There's over 11,000 volunteers nationwide. Most of them are retired executives that give back to their communities by providing free business mentoring. And so I joined, and a year into that, I became co-chair. And so now I'm a wing woman, but I thought, can I really lead a chapter? These people have a lot more life experience and professional experience in all of their subject matters. How can I lead them? And when I became chair of the chapter, I was so nervous. And I was questioning my abilities. Like, why do they think I can do this and lead over 30 mentors, all that I thought were, had more experience than me? And by doing both things, getting out of my comfort zone and finding, their strengths and asking them, how can I help support you, and getting their advice and making them part of my board and my team, it really led to a great year as a chair. And the third one, when all else fails, ask yourself why and go back to the why. And that should help at least give you that momentum to want to get out of that comfort zone and to remind yourself that you can't fail if you don't try.
I put up in the very well said, Sheila. Thank you so much. You see, that's why I love having Sheila on here. She's so full of knowledge and wisdom. Wayne Gretzky, one of my favorite quotes: "You miss every shot you don't take." I sent my son last night a video of Steph Curry taking a shot from the tunnel. I mean, he's not even on the court, and he's going to take the shot anyway. And he throws this basketball like a grenade. It arcs up in the air and like a curveball hooks to the right, and there's nothing but net, man. I'm like, wow. Was that AI? Was that live, or was that Memorex? For some of you old in the crowd, you remember the commercial. But if he'd never taken that shot, there'd be none of us out here wowing the shot and in some way being inspired by somebody, man, just being willing to throw it up there and risk missing. So if you're an innovator, an entrepreneur, a business person, a business leader, and you think that the worst thing that could ever happen to you is missing a shot, you should, no offense to McDonald's, but you should probably go to work at McDonald's, and not as a shift leader, but as a fry cook. So if you're afraid of missing, then just do nothing. But then you'll look back over your life and you'll see what all you missed, because you're going to miss big every time you don't risk missing small. You eventually miss big. And the biggest thing you miss is your life. You really miss your life. And so it's really back to, again, what Amy said at Acorn Long, what Amy said about those micro steps. You don't have to take over the world. You don't have to take step number 79 before you've taken step number 2, 3, or 4, or step 1. So if there's only one thing that you can take away from this broadcast today, is what's step 1? What's step 1? I think that you need to have that step 1 lined up before you go to bed tonight. What will be your step 1 tomorrow morning? And I know your mind is whirling and everything, but I hesitate to give you the answer, so I'm not going to give you the answer, because I want you to come up with an answer. By the way, Socrates would say that he never taught anything to anybody. He just helped them learn the answers from within. So when you have a life coach, you don't want a life coach that's prescriptive. You want a life coach that is exploratory, one that does mindset surgery. Think of Dr. Chuck here at the bottom at Chaz Green Books. And so find a life coach if you don't need something clinical, or a therapist if you do, that won't spoon feed you answers. They're not doing you a favor by doing that. By one that will join with you and hand you the scalpel of doing that self-exploratory mindset surgery. And one more thing based on what Sheila said. She said that she had all kinds of thoughts. Maybe I'm not the right person to lead the team. Maybe they know more than I do. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe they'll think I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think she said that one, but I often think that. Well, see, here's the thing that you need to know about your brain. Your brain is a master of conjuring up hypotheses. If you'll come to change your language from a doubt, I have a doubt about this, a doubt about that, a doubt about the other thing, change it to the word hypothesis. My dad would call that a $4 word. Change it to hypothesis, not a doubt. I mean, what are you going to do with a doubt? Try not to think about it? Well, good luck with that. Change it to the word, it's just a hypothesis. It's just a thought. It's just my brain being creative. Now, if you're going to find solutions, creativity is required. I know Dr. Chuck knows that a lot of times in medicine, things don't come straight out of Grey's Anatomy or whatever, out of Grey's Anatomy. And I'm not talking about the TV show, by the way. They come from curiosity and creativity. I went to a neurologist sometimes back. I know sometimes my wife says that should have been a psychiatrist, not a neurologist. But I went to a neurologist and I started to cough up hypotheses to him, and he gave me the hand. He said, I like to come up with my own hypotheses. Well, I thought that was cool, but at least he was doing it. Instead of seeing these thoughts that your brain conjures up as your enemy, something that you need to repress, and here is one of my own self-hacking tactics that if you'll do it, I think will 10x your creativity and focus. And that is to view them as potentiality. It could be this, but maybe not. It could be that, but maybe not. How well does that thought serve me? There really is an art, A-R-T, an art to life, and that is accurate, realistic thinking. A-R-T. The art of life is accurate, realistic thinking. Well, guys, I'm going to go down here to, hey there, Jimmy Bones is here, my good friend from New York City, or at least New York State. I think he's in New York City. And it's good to see you here, Jimmy. We also have Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan has said a great reminder to be confident in yourself, be humble. And yeah, absolutely. Realize that your first conclusion may not be your best conclusion. And Jimmy just said he is from Buffalo, New York. Wow. Up north, huh? Buffalo, New York. I think my buddy had a cabin outside of Buffalo, New York. Dominic Messino, he was a hostage negotiator up in New York. He was a former business partner. Rest in peace, Dominic. Guys, if you have questions, put them up here. Good to see you. Jackie Sue. Good morning, everyone. Get out of your comfort zone. The comfort zone is good for rest, but you can't spend your life resting. Growth does not occur in the comfort zone. So if you're spending your life in the comfort zone, you are in a state of stagnation. Justin, good to see Justin, our results here. And from San Diego. Man, the home of, in my experience, the most expensive coffee on the planet. I was in oh no, I take it back. It was San Francisco. I was in San Francisco, and they brought me my coffee and then brought me the bill. I thought, wow, man, that's like a buck a bean or something. But thank you so much, Justin. A great panel. I agree. And again, if you guys will be here for the next 38 minutes, guys, and we're going to be wrapping it up. So put those questions and comments in the chat. We are approaching around 200 people in the space today. I think most of those are on X. But if you're here from YouTube, welcome, as well as my friends on LinkedIn and YouTube. This is where the broadcast lives, and we're also streaming into my Mindset Masterclass, school.com/mindset. That is spelled SKOOL. And I'm going to go down here, moving along to some of the other self-hack tactics that you guys have. And let's go to back to Brian. Brian, what do you think? What are some self-hack tactics that you use to really boost your creativity, but also your focus? And Love is here. Good morning, Love. Let's go to Brian.
Yeah, Doc, can you just ask the question again? Self-hack tactics that.
Yeah. What do you do to keep that creativity juiced up?
Oh man, I seek wise counsel. I look for sources of motivation, inspiration everywhere. I read a lot of books. I watch a lot of video. I talk to a lot of people. Um, I stay creative by, I align my actions with my future self, with my goals, with my massive aspirations, and then I just take the actions as if I'd already accomplished those things. I look to my kids. I look to my chickens. There's there's a lot of there's I'm
That's the
looking at them
most
right now.
that's the most unexpected thing someone has said to me in a month is I look to my chickens as I'm thinking about my farm fresh eggs in the fridge here. Eggs are now like $20 a piece or something, you know. So I'd like you to
I have them free out here, Doc. Except each free egg actually costs about $250 if anyone is raising animals.
Brian has the most valuable eggs on the planet.
They're definitely the most costly. But yeah, I mean, as far as creativity goes, that's what it is. I mentioned earlier, when I repositioned my mindset to an audience first kind of mentality, then it seemed everything became easier. Everything became more natural to me, and I was able to tap into those sources of internal, I guess, creativity and inspiration, because I would always like, what can I bring to serve them? And when I'm thinking audience first, service based, anything, it always allows my mind to explore things that I would be limited to if I was just serving myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it really all is about keeping that creativity going. Hidden within creativity are solutions. Solutions come from creativity. I like to take things to bed with me. Not chickens, that'd just be weird, although I'm sure there are people on the planet that sleep with their chickens. But, each to their own. I think my wife would get jealous and kick me and my chickens out of bed. But solutions come out of creativity. And often your brain does that during your hours of sleep. And so instead of getting in a hurry to come up with a solution, take it to bed with you. And you might say, "Oh, but my goodness, when I go to bed with these problems and I think about them, I can't go to sleep." Well, that's because you're trying to go to sleep. I don't try to go to sleep. I lay there and I allow myself going to sleep. Going to sleep's not the target. Showing up for that appointment of sleep is the target. And then I don't think I've got to come up with a solution. When you're sitting there grinding on, what to do. Well, my goodness, if you're slapping yourself in the forehead while trying to go to sleep, no, of course not. You've put yourself in a state of fight or flight. Instead, use a self-talk. While I'm sleeping, my brain will be working on this. So I don't have to let it go, in the words of John Kabat-Zinn, father of American mindfulness, I would say. I don't have to let it go. I can just let it be. I don't have to let it go. I just have to let it be. And so I believe that during the night, the solution often arises. Now, however, if you're in a situation like Dr. Chuck, and I'll go to Dr. Chuck next, Dr. Chuck, tell us, how much of diagnostics might hold a component of curiosity and creativity, coming up with solutions that work for patients? Because I'm assuming, I'm not a physician, my field is neuropsychology, forensic psychology. I'm assuming that the solution is not always written on page 297 of the medical manual or something. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. And by the way, shout out to Brian. I always liked DJs because it was the DJ music instrumentals and like electronic music that got me through the training pipeline. Like long periods of isolation, I'd just lock in the tunes and just be like studying and stuff. But okay, so totally agree with you. These tumors that I'm diagnosing, they don't read textbooks. Just for example, a couple weeks ago, there's a poor 90-year-old lady. She had a lung mass, and and we saw tumor cells under the microscope. They were nonspecific. There was some mucinous look to it. We use immunostains from the laboratory to try to like find a pattern in the tumor cells to see if it's breast cancer or colon cancer or lung cancer. And this is totally nonspecific. So that's when I talked to a couple colleagues and we got a little curious about it. So this tumor doesn't read the books. What is the history? Is there any other diseases that this person had in the past? Turns out 4 years ago, this individual had breast cancer, and it was a specific type of breast cancer. It was triple negative, meaning that it was negative for estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and the standard markers. So it's already in a different category. And there's one new immunomarker that we use that it's good for that specific type of breast cancer. So I thought, well, let's just see. Let's just let's make a hypothesis and see, could this immunostain lead us to another entity on that differential diagnosis? So I released that case to the oncologist and I signed out the report as non-small cell carcinoma not otherwise specified. And then I wrote a little comment saying these are the three other things it could be. It could be a primary lung cancer, it could be a metastatic stomach cancer, or in specific cases, it could be a triple negative breast cancer. It turns out the oncologist, he called me up a few days later and he was just like, hey, if I could get you the tumor from that outside hospital from 4 years ago, would you look at it for me, please? And so we ordered the slides, it came back, and sure enough, the tumor looked almost identical to the one that she had 4 years ago. And so repeated the stains, and most likely that she had declined treatment at the time, so it's most likely a recurrence. So it's like you hit the nail on the head. And it's not just medicine. I'm sure in the other panelists, your career fields, you got to be flexible in your thinking, and curiosity pays dividends, right? And it'll open up conversations that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have if you were trying to kind of funnel something into something definitive, like something black and white, even though it doesn't quite fit into that square peg. So, yep. Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, man. Well said, well said. And Dr. Chuck inspired me for this little aphorism here that is also inspired by Socrates. When you can't find the answers, you may be asking the wrong questions. And I talk a lot about the work of Kahneman and Tversky, where they talk about the availability heuristic. Often you're going to go to the solution that you know the best, the answer you've heard the most of. By the way, this is what prescription drug companies are hoping for. No offense to you drug reps out there. That's not what this is about. Although I do think that, we're a drug saturated culture. There's not a pill for everything. Listen, there's not a little pill for happiness at the bottom of an amber colored pill bottle. There's just not. So you might reconsider that medication merry-go-round. But the thing is, if what they're counting on, and it's really a marketing technique, is by inundating a physician with, hey, this is the drug for, whatever. Hey, by the way, I'm stopping by. This is the best drug for whatever. That since that's the most available information, that becomes the most prescribed drug, availability heuristic. And then we go back and we try to retroactively convince ourselves and others that we've made the right call, confirmation bias, that is. And so you make a decision and then you cherry pick information to try to prove that your conclusion is the best conclusion, the wrong conclusion. So here's another mindset hack that I like to use, and I'm going to go to KREØN and Amy and Sheila before we move on to the next question. We're going to talk about some real-world examples. I love Chuck's real-world example of how you guys can implement these tools, and that is falsification. If it's only everyone else criticizing what you have to say or what you think or a theory or a conclusion that you have, then they've already beaten you to the punch. They've already rounded the bases. You need to be the first one that falsifies your own conclusions. Try it out. It will change your life. It will change your relationships. Instead of being so protective of your own conclusions, take those conclusions like this cup. Here's a cup full of my own conclusions. Set it across the room and critique those conclusions. Most people never do that. That's why most people have a fixed mindset and why they underthink. By the way, I've been in behavioral health for 40 years. I know it looks like I'm only 29 years old. No, I'm just joking. My wife says, you know, you're not a spring chicken. I quote Doc Holliday, I'm in my prime, you know. And then she quotes Ringo, you look it. But I've been in behavioral health for 40 years. I've had a private practice for 30. I've never once, ever, and I mean never, 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 found somebody that I thought too much about anything. What they do is they ignore important aspects of the situation. They're not curious enough. They're not creative enough. They're not willing to realize, well, I have this thought. I've made this conclusion, but wait, not so fast, brain of mine. What else could be the case? What else could be the case? Maybe this other person over here, my spouse, perish the thought that your spouse might have a better thought. My spouse may have a better idea. My spouse may be right. And I'll share with you really quick before we go to KREØN a little story from Stephen Covey that some of you that follow me have heard me say. I was trained by Stephen Covey. A group of me and my colleagues got to meet him personally. Wonderful man, God rest his soul. But he was telling a story about his wife, and I may be getting it wrong, it's been so many years ago, like 30 years ago. He said, you know, my wife disagrees with me a lot, but always from a place of genuineness, and I would call it a place of good faith for a good reason, okay? Not just to be critical. And so when someone's being critical, consider that as a gift of another hypothesis. Hey, you know what? That may be a better hypothesis than the one that I have. You think you're better off with less information? The critique that others share with you is simply that, information. It's a gift. You ought to carry an extra buck or two in your pocket, and when someone gives you advice or a critique, here's your dollar. Pay them for taking the time and the breath to share that critique with you. They're doing it probably out of good faith. And how do you know that? Well, you don't know that. So don't mind read, assume good faith, and say something like, you know what? I really appreciate your sharing your perspective with me. You know, I hadn't thought about that. I'll try that on for size. Hey, thank you for helping me understand your position on that. And no, you don't have to have a big rebuttal. You know, rebuttal, but, well, I think it's this way, but. No, pay them for their time, at least by respecting them, taking the time to share their thoughts. Take a deep breath, stop, breathe, think, and value other people's opinion. Well, I want to go to KREØN now. So, KREØN, I have two questions for you. You're a younger fellow, and so I have a question about your age group, your generation. What mistakes do you see them making in their own thought processes, and then how do you personally avoid those mistakes?
Oh, that's a tough one. So, I may not look like I'm already in my 30s, but yeah, I am a millennial. So I was born in the 90s, Doc. So, you know, it's tough because you're in between two worlds. So, you're kind of like living a non-digital and digital age. You live with Gen Zs, and then, you know, people they call boomer and the older ones. And then, so, but the ones in my I think we're kind of caught in between. I'm sorry, caught in between. You know, trying to, you know, balance because there was like a huge gap between, you know, the Gen Zs that we have to, of course, that's our younger cousins, and then between our cousins who are older than us, you know, But I think a lot of us have become overthinker, because I know a lot of mine are like overthinkers. Um, but we also tend to understand all of the sides, and we tend to be quiet at the same time. It's like when you know a lot of things, you tend to be just quiet because you don't want to get caught up in the drum in between of different generations. Um, and I kind of like struggle on that as well, because I don't know where am I supposed to to fit myself in, and people are in a similar spot. So that's why we tend to just, I don't know, I kind of resort to just minding my own business and be quiet and find peace and just find some good people that I can vibe with. Sometimes I can be like an apathetic person, but it doesn't really mean that I'm really apathetic. But it's just that all of the misunderstanding of this different generation and different kind of mindset, it's so hard to influence people to be like, like you mentioned earlier, to each is their own, and just had to live with that. You got to accept that, that's just how it is. You have to see you have to see things as they are, not as you are, right? So yeah, that's a bit of struggle. But at the same time, it's also beautiful to be able to experience, the dynamics of different um culture, ages, all of that at the same time. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but there's there's that yeah, it's kind of like struggle, but also something that I enjoy as I progress, as I mature. So yeah, that's just
Well, I love that, Creon. I
my
love that.
on
I
top of
love.
my head.
I particularly love the thought about choosing stillness and choosing quietness. I think that we have a tendency to fill every space with noise. My own personal experience there is when I drive down the road, do I always have to have the radio on? Do I always have to have music blasting? And I made the decision one time that intermittently, not all the time, but intermittently, I would just turn off all the noise. No TV at home, no social media for this window of opportunity, no music while I'm driving down the road. And my inspiration for that was Socrates, who was known to get lost in his thinking. Or wait a minute, was he getting lost in his thinking, or was he getting found in his thinking? Because it's only in your thinking that you're going to find solutions. And so consider whether you're underthinking something, you're ignoring important aspects of the situation. You're ignoring important aspects of the situation. KREØN, thank you so much. And True, thank you for being here, my friend. True says, thank you for helping me understand your position on that. It's ingenious. It acknowledges, gives thanks, and inspires us to truly take this suggestion into consideration without judging it. Absolutely. That's exactly what KREØN was talking about, True. Thank you so very much. And that is when you take a moment, space, grace, and courtesy for yourself. Imagine that. Space, grace, and courtesy for others, yes, absolutely. But the space, grace, and courtesy for your own thought processes. And instead of judging a thought, oh my goodness, that won't work. Oh, that's silly. Oh, you don't have what it takes. View it as simply a hypothesis. Take a moment of silence and do this. How often do you do that? How deeply are you breathing right now? Take stock if you're breathing right now in this moment. Is it shallow? Well, then you're probably going to be thinking very shallow. Or is it deeper? Well, make it deeper. You don't have to do this all day. But in Plum Village, which was founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, you can look him up, world's foremost master in mindfulness, God rest his soul. They will have a bell every hour on the hour. It just reminds people to stop, breathe, and think. Engineer that into your day and let us know how it goes. And let's see what Jimmy said. Jimmy says, am I prejudiced to go to real life situations other than some who read it in a book or Googled it? Yeah, I think both. I have books that are all about real life situations. One of my favorites is Titan, about John D. Rockefeller. I mean, like it's a 4-inch thick book. You know, it's just crazy. But you can get it as an audio book that you can learn how he thought. I love to study about the thinking of great people from the past. One of my favorite stories to tell is Caesar Augustus. He was Julius Caesar's nephew. The Caesar that we know, Julius, he didn't do so great at becoming emperor, and so his nephew Augustus was the first emperor. But he was a master of space, grace, and courtesy, because this man who wielded the sword, literally, over most of the known world, when he was disagreed with in the Senate, would stand up and leave to put some space between what was said and his reaction or his thinking. Space between what was said and your thinking and then your reaction. I have discussions with people all the time about, quote, anger management. Let me dispel this myth. There's no such thing. Stop trying to manage your anger. You're supposed to have it. It's an ability, not a curse. I can be angry and not throw this toaster oven over here. I can be angry and still do the healthy thing. Your anger, your emotions have no arms and legs. Emotions are invisible. You can't even see them. It is anything that you think you can see when it comes to emotion is actually behavior. Red face behavior, wrinkle face behavior, wadded fist behavior. And those don't make decisions, but your thought processes do. And so give yourself some space, grace, and courtesy like Caesar Augustus did. Think about what was said, make a plan of action, and then decide whether that plan of action moves your life, your relationships, your business forward. True, thanks again for listening. I appreciate the comment. Guys, we're here for another 15 minutes. We've got about 200 people in the space today. Share that with some family and friends. Send them the link. Have them come join us. If you have a question or comment, drop it in the chat, just like Truth and Jimmy Bones, Jackie Sue, Patriot, Sarah Storm, one of my favorite accounts, favorite people on X. Love as well. Good to see you. The wonderful Justin French, a master of the marketing mindset. And drop it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Ryan, good to see you here. You guys, we're looking forward to some questions here in the next few minutes. But let's go to, help me out, guys. Let's see. We heard from Brian. I think it's time to hear from, was it Amy? Or I think Amy's turn, then we'll go to Sheila. Amy, what do you think? What are some top-level hacks or real-life examples of you seeing people, use these different concepts to change their life?
Well, a hack I wanted to share is nothing lasts forever. So over 2 decades ago, I had read this particular magazine article, and that was what it was titled, Nothing Lasts Forever. And it left a real impact on me. And I used that throughout my career and offered that to people in moments of fear, but also in moments of comfort. And so, for example, when I was first out of law school, I led a team of young licensed legal interns and young attorneys, and I was a public defender. And so we had a very high caseload. We were appearing in front of judges. There was a lot of nerves with people that were new. And one thing I would tell them is, look, nothing lasts forever. So you just need to go through this moment, through this hour, through this afternoon, wherever we are, and we're going to get through it. But then on the reverse side, I've used that along the way, talking with people. When you get a little bit too comfortable, you have to remember nothing is going to last forever. So on the one hand, it's not to put a damper on it, but you really want to enjoy and soak up and take lessons from when things are going well in your eyes, and then also understand that things will be changing. So you want to be able to be prepared for that and all of those ebbs and flows. And so really just those 3 words is my hack that's gotten me through moments of nerves, but also kept me going and being prepared for, when the good times don't last forever either.
I love that, Amy. I love that so much. This too shall pass. Problems in life are a bit like constipation. this too shall pass. And so give your system time to process things through. And Amy, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Sheila, what are some hacks that you've seen really, I mean, let's put some shoe leather on it, as my dad would say, and like our other guests did. I really appreciated what Dr. Chuck and Amy and KREØN and Brian had to say. But what are some real life ways you've seen people actually use some of these things to change their life?
So I would say look for new perspectives. And when KREØN talked about generations, for example, that's to me a very important topic because we actually have four. He forgot to mention Generation X, which is my generation. That's why I paid attention to that small detail. And you can be really creative by sometimes just getting out of your own mind, whether it be taking a walk to take in nature or talking to other people. With an entrepreneurial mindset, we are normally looking for not just solutions, but opportunities within problems, right? And so by just talking to someone, asking them the same question, you pick one in each generation, for example, you're going to get a different perspective. You're going to get a different answer. And when we talk about humility, the most important thing is that by listening and not judging, well, which one is right, by taking in these different perspectives, by having a little bit of empathy and seeing it from their point of view, it'll get your mind rolling. And I think that's why I enjoy doing what I do, because I love learning about people and what may seem to them like, oh, I've got this going on, or I'm stuck right now, or I've got a problem. It's, well, how can you find an opportunity, a solution within that problem? Not just to continue moving forward, but, to thrive, to be successful, all because of having paid attention or listening to a different perspective, or perhaps using your own eyes and seeing people from a different perspective, not from a who's wrong, who's right. It's all about learning from not just the different generations, but the different cultures. So use your senses and take that in, and then use humility by saying they're all right, because in the end, everyone looks to just be validated, right? We all care. And so your opinion is just as important as the next person's. And those are my 2 cents of how I would be creative and, always
Man,
look for that.
I think that is worth so much more than 2 cents. I mean, that is really, really world class advice. Let's do a thought experiment, guys. Let's imagine that you're going to do a pitch to some angel investors. My friend Josh does Innovators Think Tank on X. You guys check it out. Alex Damsker has a pitch space, really, really great account. Check out Alex Damsker's account. But imagine that you're going to do a pitch to these folks, all right? And they get to the end of it and they ask you, well, how are you going to do product testing? How are you going to test your products with your potential customer base? And you say, oh, we're not going to test anything. We're going to do no product testing. Well, why aren't you going to do product testing? We met with the stakeholders, my business partners, and we're just not going to do product testing because we just don't want people to criticize the product. You want to be the next Apple and you're going to do no product testing. You want to build the best next widget, but you don't want to do product testing because you don't want critique. Well, isn't that the point of product testing? Well, we just don't think we can take it. Critique, it's just toxic, and we got our self-esteem to worry about. We really can't take it. We've got some kind of trauma. We can't take critique. We really can't do that. Well, think of your product as being your ideas. Your product is your ideas, your thought processes. That's the product of your brain. Why would you not test those out with people? Why would you not do some market testing with these ideas that you think are so world changing? And if you're going to do product testing and you get no feedback, or the only feedback you'll accept, let's just say that you do product testing for the next new, I don't know, smartphone or whatever, and you get all these critiques and you don't read them. You hire Sheila or Amy or Dr. Chuck or KREØN or Brian to go through the critiques of your product testing, because you only want to see the positive ones. And you say, oh my goodness, don't let me see any negative critique. I just want to see the ones that are all thumbs up. Well, that's learning nothing. You have wasted your money. You've wasted your time. You wasted everybody's time. The most valuable critique I've ever gotten is from people that challenge my own way of thinking. So this is an intersection of mindset. This is the mindset intersection. It is take the path that most people take, and that is I can only bear the non-challenging critiques. I'm really just looking for a mental massage. Okay, that's a path that most people take. Or you can take the high road, the narrow path, which really looks for the value. Gosh, why might they be critiquing that? Now, it could be for reasons that are just specific to them. Maybe they just love looking at the downside. Well, I found I can learn something even within that. So here in a minute, I want to go to Dr. Chuck, because Dr. Chuck, in the ER or in the OR, really more the OR, I guess, than the ER, share with us, what do the people in that room, the highly trained professionals, do before they start cutting? What kind of critique does the chief surgeon, who we know is second only to God himself, if you know surgeons, what does the chief surgeon, no offense to you surgeons out there, but I know a few, do?
Yeah.
What's it
Yeah,
do?
there's a timeout. And it's got to be short, succinct, and cover all the key bases of the patient demographics, so you know who's in the room, what the name of the surgery is, what is the reason for the surgery, and they got to keep it short and sweet. It's funny you mentioned that. It's like a colleague of mine was telling me a story about an implant that was put in the wrong patient at the wrong time. So there was a surgery at 8 a.m. and the patient had to cancel, and so they called the next patient that was scheduled at 10 a.m. To come be bumped up by about an hour. But so there was an outside device that was an implant company, and it was handled by a specialized technician, I think they're called medical physicists, because the implant had a radioactive material in order to fight a specific type of melanoma that was in that organ. And so, but the second patient, it didn't have melanoma. So, unfortunately, when they dove into what caused the error, it was that the timeout procedure was confusing. The surgeon was on the other side of the room. They weren't actively involved in it. There was too many cooks in the kitchen. So anyways, that was probably like a bad example of a timeout gone wrong. And by the way, that's a check. That's a written check for X amount of dollars to the family. There's no explanation for that. And fortunately, no one was hurt. And they removed the radioactive implant from the right patient. But, going back to, I think, Sheila and Acorn, you touched on this when you were talking about the people that you had hired over the years. That it reminded me of this Navy psychiatrist that was a mentor of mine about 10 years ago. And he said, okay, I used to ride a lot of bikes in California. And he said, when you ride your bike, do you press down on the pedals or do you pull up on the pedals? And I was like, a little bit of both. So he's like, so when you're anxious about the procedure or about seeing the new patient or whatever, are you all 100% anxious, or are you also confident? You know what I mean? You can be two things at once. It's about smoothing out the cadence. And so that really kind of stuck with me from, I guess, when it comes to just training myself in challenging situations. But anyways, I hope that answered the question, man.
No, it does. It does. And I'm a big biking fan. And yeah, I haven't thought about that. Do you pull up or do you press down? That's great advice, especially on my Peloton where, you know, you're locked in, and on a competitive bike, your shoes may lock in. You're really doing both. And so keep on pedaling. Keep on pedaling. The presence of progress doesn't have to come at the absence of anxiety. The presence of progress does not have to come at the absence of anxiety. While you're pedaling away from whatever you think is a threat to you, you're just losing ground and other people are gaining ground, you know. So pedal through the anxiety, you know, because guess what? Anxiety is smoke. Emotions are the smoke of the fiery furnace of our thought processes. This creates emotions, and what do? Well, they don't do anything. You know, I mean, they're uncomfortable, but you can progress through discomfort. We talked about the comfort zone earlier. And so I love what Dr. Chuck said, have a timeout. Your products are your thoughts. Take a timeout and check them out with some trusted friends and colleagues and invite critique. After this show, actually before this show, I share with my guests at the end, we'll conclude the show, which we'll hear in a few minutes. If you guys have questions, just go ahead and put those on the screen. Kim, a member of my Mindset Masterclass, thank you for being here, and love the pedal analogy. Yes, I did too. It was wonderful. I love that. But I said at the end, I'd love a critique. You know, tell me what went well, and then share with me something you think could be improved. So that's another tip I want to share with you. Actually frame the critique you're looking for. And I stole this from a good friend of mine, Jim Corder, runs Corder Consulting, one of the top consultants in the nation, I think. He will ask people, tell me a few things that you think went right, and then tell me something you think I could improve. You see, people love sharing good news, but they hesitate sharing bad news. So you can frame that by asking for the good news first, which relaxes them to where they're more willing to share, you know, at least one thing. Well, you know, I don't know, you know, the candle in the background, did you guys notice the candle? I lit it just for you. I'm here lit up just for you. Some people may not like that. I've had patients come. Actually, I've had doctors come and they'll say, what is that smell? Well, gosh, I don't know. Oh, it's the candle. Can you not turn that on? And, or light it or whatever. And so
what's the smell?
Yeah, I lose track. I don't have a good smeller. My wife often critiques me about that. She'll say, you can't smell anything. You smell smoke? No, is there smoke? You know? I mean, that's why I have a smoke detector, so I don't have to go around smelling smoke. But I don't know, French vanilla or something like that, nothing too crazy. But some people are just candle sensitive, you know? And so that's a critique. I consider it, and if it works better for you, I'm glad to do that, you know? I don't like your hair. Well, I'm not going to shave it off. You know, I'm sorry you don't like my hair. And so some things you can do something about and some things you can't, but accept critique, but frame it. What are a couple things you think went well? And what's something you think would help make it better? And see what I did there? That way they don't think they're directing it at you, because people are hesitant to do that. I mean, people pay me to do that, by the way, but I'm a clinician in mental health. So let people know what you're looking for. It's really no different than, hey, honey, my back itches. Well, how do they know where to scratch? You have to tell people where to scratch. And then when they do, or if they miss, instead of criticizing them, have a conversation about it. Guys, it has been a wonderful 90 minutes. I'd like to go around the room and just kind of wrap up with my wonderful, stellar guests here. Let's leave our listeners, our viewers, with something that really revs them up, stimulates, fuels them for the week ahead. And the mic is open. Anybody that wants to jump in can jump in. What do you think, guys? Let's go with Brian, the DJ. Let's put
I knew you were going to do that.
The DJ on the turntable. Brian is up first on the turntable. What's something we can leave our folks with this afternoon or this morning?
Yeah, I mean, On topic, I would say, man, focus on change the spotlight from yourself to others. And when you focus on other people, put the audience first. We've mentioned that a couple times, but it's the most important thing for me in this particular topic is being able to have the trust in yourself, the confidence, and and even seeking inspiration and everything comes from other people. There's only, if you think about it, the entire world is made up of others, except for one shining exception, right? Which is yourself. So if you put that focus first and really stress things like empathy, and position yourself in a way to serve others, and really get there in your mind, I think that's the most important thing, the most important next step that will make everything easier.
I love it. I love it. And Dr. Chuck, being a physician's hard. My son is working on being one. The whole pathology thing, he just, I ran up the flagpole with him. He decided that wasn't his thing. I ran up the dermatology thing with him. Man, moolah, dermatology. And, but he is thinking about internal medicine and emergency medicine. He's thinking about doing emergency medicine primarily. And then when he gets, too tired or old to do the ER thing, just kind of segueing into internal medicine. But no matter how you slice it up, doctoring is a really tough field. So my question for you is, how do you keep yourself going? What kind of thinking keeps you forward focused in your career?
I don't know, man. I guess I just kind of kept. It's like, you ever been to Chicago in the wintertime? And it's like that wind just sweeps across the lake and it's icy and it's snowy and everything. All you can do is shrug your shoulders and tuck your chin into your neck and just keep trudging forward. But I think, man, if I could whisper to myself as a first year med student, I think what I would do is I would develop a writing practice every single day, because it's such a long pipeline and you change and evolve as you go. So you can't control all the other factors, but you can control your thoughts and your reactions to situations. And I think you don't always have time to go visit a therapist or a life coach, or, and nor do you have the money at that phase of your life. So like a daily writing practice where, you just brain dump 3 long form pages or whatever you can, and then 6 months later kind of reflect on that and then change course as needed. But for your son, I would just say internal medicine is pretty bulletproof. If you can branch out in any other direction, if you start with like that's the foundation of medicine, is internal medicine. I guess if I were him and I was unattached, no family, no kids, I would go to you want to get killed in your residency. You want to go to the toughest, most brutal program you possibly can, because that is going to chisel you in ways that an easier program will not. Now, if you have family, if you have kids, it's a different story. That's a unique situation. But that's what I would do, man. And when you're looking to branch out into fellowship programs and into private practices, they want to hire someone that can take a punch. Go to the Mass Generals, the UCSFs, the University of Washington, like the big places that are pretty malignant, like they're going to look the other way at your work hour restrictions. But I tell you what, you're going to learn how to handle stress. You're going to learn how to function on very little sleep, and your patients are going to be better off down the road, because they need you to be somebody who is chiseled through the training pipeline. So best wishes to your son. And thanks, gratitude, man. Thanks for having me on here. I'm humbled to be here. Good to meet you all.
It is so great to have you. I met Dr. Chuck. Gosh, it's been like a year ago. I did a space with you and some other guys, and love your whole niche in writing. Man, if you guys want to know how to write, how to journal, even the paper to use and the pen to use, man, Dr. Chuck's your guy. That was like my time at the VA. Let me just tell you, at the time, I hate to even say this, but I mean, there were upsides to it. There are upsides to it. Hey, there's my good friend, your son mindset. Great to have you here, one of the greatest speakers on X. But I really despised it at the time. I thought, holy crap, man, another day at the VA. And I think and it wasn't the patients. I love the patients. It was just all the bureaucracy. I thought, man, can we make this work any worse? There's really no bad system that the government can't make worse. So if I
That's
was
the
just dealing
truth.
with patients, man, I'm good to go. But man, bureaucracy, guys in Washington, I just don't know. But I will say this: it's really a bit of a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego effect. Who are thrown in the fiery furnace. I came out the other side, and honestly, in my field, man, there's really, if I want to do it, there's nothing I can't do. I segued into crisis work. I was a crisis junkie. You get kind of addicted to that stuff, but you'll never get there in your comfort zone. I remember climbing, and I would take the stairs. I was on the fifth floor. I hardly ever took the elevator because the elevators didn't work half the time anyway. But it's government elevators. Uh, even even saying that, even government elevators don't work well. But I think
I'm
they
getting
finally.
chills. I'm getting chills from those days. Those long nights in a government hospital, man. I
Oh,
know exactly what you're talking about.
man, I thought, man, I'd just take the stairs because no one else did. No one else did. And but I look back on it, and it's the craziest thing. It's almost like I'm a different person looking back at a different person, loving the time that I spent at the VA because it truly. It wasn't at the time, other than work with the veterans. It was that, but at the time I didn't think this. But looking back on it, it was such a gift, and the gift came because of the lack of comfort. The gift came because of the struggle. The gift came from the way you treat Chicago in the wintertime. And that is those chilling, freezing, cold winds. What do? You lean into them. You lean into them. The hardest thing in your life today, guys, we've got nearly 300 people watching this. Let me tell you, the hardest thing in your life today, stop running from it. My dear neuropsychology professor, God rest his soul, Dr. Gregory Murray. Goodness, everybody I'm talking about today's dead. I keep on having to say God rest her soul. It's like, don't be around Dr. Heath, you won't survive it. But Dr. Gregory Murray would say, things in life that you run from tend to chase you. Things in life that you run from tend to chase you. And so lean into them. Lean into them. And like the wind, you will go through them or they'll go around you. But you'll master that. And then it won't seem so hard the next day and less hard the next. My wonderful friend Bryce is here. Great seeing you here today. A master in the art, it is an art, of Stoic philosophy. But let's see, KREØN, how do you lean into difficult things in your life?
Um, well, I'm sorry, Doctor. Did you ask how do I handle
Yeah, how do you
difficult
handle or
situations?
lean into the most difficult
Hmm.
things in your life?
Well, I always try to stay calm because I'm also like practicing stoicism. Reading some books, and that helps me a lot. And having a clear mind, trying to not totally avoid, but just pretty much handle or manage them in a way that you can still think clearly, and that you're not clouded with all that um, like strong immediate anger or whatever. Yeah, I try to be. I tend to be in a situation where I can be peaceful. I find a location, or talk to some people that can actually promote peace and think better. I don't need them to understand me sometimes, but just to listen sometimes, or if they can provide something else like a wisdom or knowledge, that's what I actually look for. And by the way, Dr. Heath, about this topic that we have today, my takeaway, I'd say, gonna segue to that. So trust, I think, it is one of those very important foundation of all relationships. So when we start trusting ourselves, and start doing what we always wanted but hesitated to do, we are actually exhibiting trust in ourselves, right? And that compels people to trust us whether we like it or not. I think because that has been like the effect to me. And also another takeaway is, always assume positive intent. Maybe, I don't know, unless fired upon like the rules of engagement. But some people give us criticism because maybe, just maybe, they trust us that we can do better. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Heath.
Yeah, I love that. I say that to patients all the time and clients I do relationship work with, and that is realize, and let me just kind of pick on the guys. Men are fueled by confirmation and significance. No offense to anybody, but men are not women, women are not men. Okay, I'm not making this crap up. I'm just the messenger. Uh, if you haven't noticed, I tell men when they come in, I say, I have some terrible news for you. You may not have known this. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your wife, I just hate to share this. Your wife is not a man, probably, So they do function different. So men function off of confirmation and significance. And then when they get a critique from their spouse, they often believe that it's an attack or it's undercutting or it's in bad faith, but it's just information. It's information. So yeah, don't punish them for that. And so thank you, KREØN. I really appreciate that. Wise words indeed from and what generation did you say that you're in? You're Z?
No, I'm millennial, Dr. Heath.
Oh, you're a millennial. Well,
Yeah,
what
I'm in the
letter
ninth.
does millennial
Born.
have a letter? What letter's millennial?
Oh, probably the older millennial, because I was born in 1991.
Oh, but millennials don't have a letter? I've never thought about that. Because Sheila said she's a
No, no,
Generation
no
X.
letters, I guess.
I guess you're an M. Yeah,
Oh,
Generation
I'm
X
not
on
sure.
X. Yeah, yeah.
Am I?
Thank you so much. I
No.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Amy at Acorn Lawn on X. Check their profiles out at Chaz Green Books. Chaz Green Books is Dr. Chuck. Brian at the Brian or KREØN_Gashido on X. And then Sheila at Sheila Slick on X. We're all on X. You guys check out the account. Well, Amy, wrap us up here. What words of wisdom would you leave our crowd with today? We got about 300 or so people here.
I would just say break things down into their smallest parts. So I think it's really easy for us to overwhelm ourselves and get overwhelmed. A great mentor I had a long time ago coached on breaking things down into their smallest parts. And I believe it was Descartes who said that. And you really can't fail with that because it's always going to get you momentum and get you into motivation.
Break things down. Yeah. I take it a step at a time. Your brain is really, really good at procedural things, but you have to practice it. By the way, with the onset of dementia, procedural memory is one of the last things that you lose, and which is for a reason. Most everything we do in life, including walking, eating, riding, doctoring, it's procedural. So break things down. Take step one. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here. And we're going to wrap it up with the wonderful Sheila. Sheila was on my Executive Espresso. We have one of those coming up on Friday, as we do every Friday at 9 a.m. EPT. That is Elvis Presley time. For the rest of you, that's Central Standard Time, Memphis, Tennessee time. And so 9 a.m. this Friday. If you have a story to tell at the intersection of mindset and business, please join me then. And then every day we have Midday Mindset. That is 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, U.S. Memphis time, on X. And it's a old-time radio show conversation, campfire of wisdom. So we have that coming up here in about 3 hours and 13 minutes on X. Sheila, take it away. And what would you leave our guests with today?
Well, I would love to wrap it up with perspective and getting out of that comfort zone. So there's 4 generations pretty much out there right now. We got Generation Z, we've got millennials, we've got X, and we have baby boomers. So do one of two things starting today or this week. Pick one question, not political, not religious, just one question, and ask three different people, preferably three different generations, and then just listen to what they have to say. And then go back and just think about what you could have learned or what you learned just from, the three different answers. Just like this panel today, we have a lot of different perspectives. And together, it's just potent, right? Because you have so many golden nuggets from so many different people, different backgrounds, different perspectives. And if you want to take it a step further, why don't you ask if they know you and you want to practice feedback? Just say, give me three words that you would use to describe me. No explanations. And you'll learn so much about yourself by just hearing three words from someone else, and that'll get your mind growing. So pick one of the two, but the challenge is try and seek different perspectives. Respect the perspectives, the perspectives. Don't challenge them, grow from them. What can you learn from these? And it may even get you out of your comfort zone, but that's where growth happens. Thank you all for being part of the panel with me and for inviting me once again to Mindset Mojo. I love learning. We can't hear you,
Doctor
I don't
muted.
think.
You see, I said that would happen, and it did.
We knew it
I
was gonna happen.
talking, and the and the words
Saved it to
actually
the
were.
end.
Yeah, save it to the end, guys. I invited my panel to critique me, and I said, if you see my mouth moving but sound's not coming out, it's because I've muted myself in order to call for something like that. But thank you very much. So what I'm going to leave you with today, guys, is this: create a kudo to-do list. A kudo to-do list. In your journal, I use Mem, which is an AI journal. You can use Apple Notes, you can use something else. So a kudo to-do list is when someone gives you a compliment, accept it, but don't waste it. And what I mean by wasting it is if you don't write it down, you may not remember it. And those little details may be important to remember when you're struggling. I have a whole kudos folder from comments on X where people say nice things. Do yourself a service and write those down. Okay? Take a minute after the conversation and write down what they said. Because, see, then you can go back and remind yourself and be uplifted by those wonderful, supportive words. If they take time to say it, why wouldn't you take time to remember it, help yourself remember it by recording it? So that's kudos. The to-do list is when you do have critique. I believe in consuming critique like chicken, right? You eat the meat, you spit out the bones. The mistake that most people make is, if they were consuming chicken like they consume critique, they would choke on it because they try to swallow the whole thing, head and all. I got a friend in China who we were eating hot pot, and they bring it to you. It looks like somebody ran the chicken over the lawnmower. And then, the head is there. Everything's there. And my friend said, I'll take the head. I said, man, you're welcome to the head. I'm not eating the head of a chicken. And he put the head in his mouth and started crunching the darn thing up, In the States, we don't do that. I don't know. I think we turn the head into fertilizer. So that's what you should do is eat or consume critique like you do chicken. Write down a takeaway from the critique. What can I learn from it? Well, it may be that the critique itself isn't really on target, on base, doesn't have a lot of a high, it's not high value. Well, what you can write down is that you can learn to be discerning, and not every critique is on target. Not every critique is a good fit for you. Consume critique like chicken. Create a kudos to-do list. And the kudos are wonderfully supportive things people say. The to-do list are ways of perceiving of critique in a healthy way. Thank you guys for being here. Again, we'll be back in about 3 hours and 7 minutes for Midday Mindset. That's on X. It's just an audio space, old-time radio style. And then on Friday, we'll have a high-octane conversation a 18-minute conversation. It's a short form conversation at the intersection of business, innovation, entrepreneurship, and life leadership. That is every Friday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Guys, KREØN, Dr. Chuck, Brian, Amy, and Sheila, y'all are absolutely fabulous. The mic is open anytime you have time for a Monday morning conversation, and I got a slot open, then check in with me, and I'd love to have you guys on again. Have a wonderful day. We'll catch you next time. Check out the Mindset Masterclass, school.com/mindset. That's SKOOL.com/mindset, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
now.
Doc.